school stuff. I'm like, okay. Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 6 of Connect the Dots, our now bi-weekly web tech talk show, where we do our best to discuss current trends in web technology and answer everyone's questions in the spirit of the Car Guys Radio. Call-in style, all questions are welcome. And we host special guests from the industry in hopes of providing a lot of value and having some fun together. And with us today is Jon Voigt and my partner, Arjuna Shankar. Hey, man. Hey, you're on mute.
You're muted.
Amazing. All right.
Perfect. We hear you now.
Yeah. I think I went on mute because of my mustache, which is a new addition to my life.
Very nice, I must say.
Yeah.
Bravo.
That's great.
Anyway, so thanks for introing us, Chris. And let me just say a bit more about Dot, I guess. And Dotfusion, we're a team of a bunch of curious design and code professionals. We strive for a lot of perfection, and we fuss a lot, and we're kind of joyful in what we do. And we generally like the idea of harnessing profits to create good in the world. And for the past 25 years, we've been building beautiful digital things, websites, apps, IoT stuff on a plethora of enterprise platforms in a really wonderful environment, which I think you can see a bit of behind Chris, filled with plants and music and bicycles. So that's
and coincidentally, part of the amazing stuff we've been building for so long is on Agility CMS, as a matter of fact. And
exactly.
we're super stoked and lucky to have a friend, colleague, and the CEO of Agility, Jon Voigt, is here. You want to do a quick introduction of yourself?
Thanks, Chris.
Awesome.
So Jon Voigt, and as Arjuna was saying, you could kind of get that flair of enjoying what you do, having fun with things, and I think that was the connection that we all had, more than 15 years ago when we started working together, just about the joy of looking at a customer solution or looking at something and being like, let's have fun with this, let's have some creativity with this, let's figure out how to get this job done. And we've been in business as a company for a really long time, Agility CMS, but we were originally a dev shop and worked with you guys on some projects together. And then we started building our CMS platform over the years. And it's always been a API-driven solution. I think back in the day, it was a bit more rigid in terms of the SDKs you could use. You could always call the API, but people normally just use their SDKs. And as times changed and people get more comfortable with APIs and this headless idea, we've really started to support people and just call the API like a raw API and use it in that, not just decoupled, but fully headless kind of model. And you guys have been along for that whole ride, and a lot of our customers have been too, that we've shared over the years. So it's been a great journey. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I just took a bunch of industry trending keywords in that intro of yourself. We're going to get back to them because they're not always as easy to understand.
For sure.
But just to remind everyone that's listening, we have a great production crew that is monitoring social channels, and the whole idea is for anyone in the audience just to ask us anything about web tech, CRM, CMS, anything with 2 or 3 letters kind of describing what it is ideal. But to put that in context, we are really fortunate to have Jon here, who has been behind the wheel of growing a CMS company. It's not often you or we get access directly to someone who's been really responsible for making decisions and pioneering technology to support the websites that we make. So thanks a ton. But I did notice if we get into the weeds a little bit, one of the great things about Agility CMS. Oh, and I didn't want to lose the vision of the beginning when you cruised into our office on King Street about 15 years ago. I think we had briefcases at that time.
Oh,
and you're
yeah.
like, hey man, we got this cool CMS. That's an important note in that one of the chats I've had with other CMS industry experts was around the observation that there are a lot of different CMS options, and they seem to be popping up fairly quickly all over the place. And why I wanted to make that connection of, becoming your friend and doing business with you a long, long time ago, is that Agility has stood the test of time, and we've seen it grow and mature. And that can't be said for a lot of other, kind of bits of technology that pop up. So that's a reason why we made such an investment in supporting and building on Agility, is that, we've seen the roadmap and that you've been around and stood the test of time. But anyway, can you just kind of talk about like what API driven content actually means? Because, even that the word API or headless, these things do get kind of lost with senior marketing folks that are involved in making these kind of technology purchasing decisions. And just
100%.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
And even the word headless gets very confusing. I was at a session I went last November, and we were doing a talk, and we wanted to make it a conversation. And so we asked the community, the group, which are all industry experts, what headless really is. And they all had different answers, and they were all industry experts. So how do you think everyone else was feeling out there, right? So it gets super confusing. And obviously I have my definition. Most people's definition of a headless CMS or headless, doesn't have to be CMS, it can be headless e-commerce, headless, search, headless anything, is the fact that it is the back-end application you use, and there's APIs or application programming hooks where someone can develop and connect into it. So the general idea is you have to build something in front, or you have to integrate with something in front to use that content, to use that solution. And that's kind of the basic idea of headless. I take it a little bit further in the sense that I feel that the architecture of the solution has to be built with that architecture in mind. So a lot of people have taken older legacy systems, not just CMS, across all industries, and added APIs in front and said, now you can run this in a headless model. But the back end, you don't manage the solutions, the content, the things in a way that makes it easy to actually reuse content, to share across channels, to do all sorts of things that really tie in with the benefits of an API-driven solution. So my definition is it's a lot more than just an API where you can really tie in anything. You can tie in a website, an app, other solutions, applications, all these different things. It makes it easy to integrate with. But you can actually architect it and use it in a way that allows you to make it reusable, scalable, more performance, more higher level performance. All these things come from this architecture if it's done right. Obviously, the done right is still the term that, that's why I love working with you guys, because you guys get that and can work with customers, and you can be like, let's look at your solution. It's not just these 3 platforms you picked, but how do we architect on top of these to make it easy to use today, easy to use tomorrow by future-proofing it, making it scalable, those type of things, which a lot of people don't care and worry about. They just develop something, throw it together, and be like, it looks pretty right now. And then 6 months, 12 months down the road, the customer's like, well, I want to do X, Y, Z, or it's not scaling the way I want it to. So those are the things you can really prevent with headless, but you got to keep it top of mind.
So I just wanted.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, dude. I just wanted just in case anyone is wondering, just a little reset. So Agility CMS is essentially a content management platform of which websites are built on top of it. And there's this idea of using Agility as your content kind of hub or centralized area, and you can really present it anywhere. And then along with that comes some architectural prowess, of which Arjuna on our team is primarily responsible for a big architecture on things. I don't know, man. I know you're going to cut you off there, but I just wanted to bring that on home and how that all works. But, from a perspective of someone making a CMS purchasing decision, Arjuna, when you're thinking about, resourcing and architecture. Kind of what's your experience been in, I guess, in this headless environment, especially on agility?
Yeah, I mean, one huge thing I always say to lots of people is that agility was headless before the word headless was even a thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think earlier we were calling it like a hosted CMS, or we used to use that kind of terminology before.
Kind of came out before headless a little bit, so decoupling the back and the front
Yeah.
end, and then hosted or like cloud. But we were even cloud before cloud was cloud. Like
exactly.
It was way back. Yeah.
And
it was
and because of the fact that agility's always, you know, been in that zone way longer than any of these other players, you know, and it's always been like a platform which I think of as like, one, it has all the benefits, and it's always had those benefits, even when it was only like a bunch of .NET SDKs.
Yeah.
It still worked completely headlessly, where, you know, there was no server that had direct access to a database to hack. What are you going to do? Hack a bunch of flat HTML files, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, stuff like that, which was like really, really cool. And then there's this other thing as well with agility where I find that, you know, there's, you know, a big thing which really differentiates agility from like other headless CMS platforms is the fact that you guys have this concept that in your CMS, you still have an idea of pages, and that URLs are important.
Yeah.
So a lot of people who are very, you know, come from a more traditional space where they think of, oh, it's a website, so it's got to be linked to, you know, where does it land? It's much easier for them to kind of like visualize, oh, cool, that's how it fits. That's how it comes together. And I think that's a huge differentiator with agility, you know, the fact that
I agree. But that's still a tricky one, because
yeah,
if you go and talk to the industry experts about headless, the idea, the initial idea when the term headless came out was you don't know where the content goes.
Yeah.
You write your content, you can send it, reuse it, use it whichever way, but nothing in the CMS should have anything to do with where it goes. And we are a firm believer against that, for a couple of reasons. You can have a bit of both. You can have two types of content. There's content that's reusable, it's scalable, it's, you know, very raw content, it doesn't know where it's going. And then there's other content that you write that needs context. It needs to know where it's going. So if I'm writing my homepage intro, I need to know it's on my homepage, because I'm going to write that differently because of how the consumer consumes it. So this, we call this contextual content, or, you know, very, you know, page or destination specific content. And you need both of those. And so we've, as you said, we've totally built our solution around that, where we have our, you know, kind of raw content area, or it used to be called shared content back in the day. We just call it content now, but it's really about shared content. Content you're going to reuse. It's very structured, very easy to manipulate and use in different areas, but it generally doesn't know where it's going. And then you have this kind of page, or we call it layout content, because it generally is laid out in a certain way, because we also send content to apps or display boards or other tools where it might not be a specific page, but generally still you kind of want to know, like, is this at the top where someone interacts with it right away, and where's the context? And then you're right, we do have URLs or routing and those type of things. We don't build pages, so nothing about design and presentation. We truly believe the design, the user interface can be somewhere else. We have a client, Cineplex Entertainment, that has rebuilt their site on Agility, I want to say over 6 times, and most of the back end is the same, but they've been able to rechange the design from responsive design to accessibility needs to new designs and whatever, but the content is still the same, but the design has to change. So that design really should be in the CMS. And I think you guys follow that paradigm. You guys agree 100% with that kind of paradigm.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, a big thing I always like say to people is, you know, you could say 1,000 things about like what headless is and what headless isn't, but the simplest way to like explain it to anybody would be that you don't need back-end developers. That's it.
Yeah.
You do need some kind of front-end guys who can like put some paint on stuff, you know. But you don't need plumbers. You need painters.
Exactly.
Hey guys,
especially with the newer technology. Really, the technology and developing solutions, whether websites, apps, it's all moving front end. It's all design, because the back end's getting more automated, getting built into the platforms pretty much, and you just get the raw content you need to make pretty.
Yeah.
Deliver.
When so a typical day in my life is engaging a prospective customer, and They have a list of requirements. Their main motivations are cost-effective solution that looks world-class and is beautiful and can be done quickly. They don't know or necessarily have the infrastructure as a mandate. So what I am constantly trying to solve for is, how do I communicate and have them kind of mentally set to make a transition from kind of whatever system they're using, which is usually kind of an older school kind of coupled system, something that has the presentation kind of directly tied to content itself. What is the language you use when introducing the idea of kind of moving from a traditional system to a headless or a decoupled architecture? I just like kind of drumming around some discussion around that.
Yeah, to me, and Arjuna, I hope you agree, but maybe you can add some things. But to me, it's about speed of development. Number one, you can just move so much faster. So time is money nowadays, and also smaller iterations. So we share a common client, Boys Town, and the case in that case, they have a huge project they want. And if you go back in the day where you use a big digital experience platform or bigger traditional system that does everything, it takes a long time to get going with that. So the idea with headless is start with a small project, build that, then start on the next one. And while you're starting on the next one, you're learning from the first one already. So you can carry that forward. So this learning comes back in. So you're able to go faster and faster over time, but also you're perfecting as you go. So you're getting closer and closer to the goal. It's kind of like the promise of agile methodology versus, a waterfall technique. Waterfall, you have to plan everything in advance. You can really get moving quicker.
Point.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with that, actually. Like the idea that you move in small incremental bits, because the other scene also is that, especially, especially when we're talking about replatforming or moving from one platform to another, a big thing that always gets missed is that the organization that's moving from platform A to platform B now has to train and relearn how this new system works, which is
importing. They forget about, like, how long does it take to transport content?
Exactly, and it's big things, and even small things that make a massive difference. I'll give you a really, really, really simple example. We have some shared clients who come from places like WordPress, right? And they walk into the content editor in Agility, and they're expecting it to do certain things immediately in there, which it won't do, because it's a different paradigm of like content editing and like managing content. So it does take a couple of weeks, maybe a month or two, for these content editors to like understand this new paradigm. So it's always great to, ease them into it with a small project, and then kind of like grow and like, increase stuff.
It's like what Yoda said, you have to unlearn what you've learned, right? Like you get so used to a certain system, it is a paradigm shift.
Yeah. One of those paradigms is I remember when we used to have to get ready to stand up the platform. You have to stand up Agility. It's up. You just got to like fill in the blanks and kind of watercolors. So all that to say that we can get things done a lot quicker. But I love that idea of being able to, instead of one big mass migration, you're slowly migrating. So there's a nice learning curve for everyone to go through, and they're comfortable with it. And just one of the other cool things, just from my perspective, and usually kind of on the client facing side, helping authors and editors figure out how to use the platforms ideally, is the amount of customized controls that you can build into all of the component controls inside Agility, to the extent that you're able to control other third-party services from within the Agility interface. I just thought that was like the coolest thing, because I'm kind of trying to help.
Headless is more cloud-based, where it's one version that's getting updated all the time. So a lot of them, not all of them, but some of them are building marketplaces, like app marketplaces, where you can build your own custom apps and interfaces within the solution, because you don't customize Agility, you configure your instance, right? So I think that's one of the benefits, is that you can always upgrade it. You can always be on the latest version, versus older systems that you were talking about, Arjuna, there. Some of them, like, it's a big job to upgrade those, especially if you've customized them. When you install them on the server and you try to upgrade something you've customized, it's a huge cost. And that comes back to your previous question about why it's a big benefit in terms of cost, time. Cost too is just the system may feel sometimes like it's more expensive because it's normally an annual subscription, but you get all the support constantly, you get all the upgrades constantly, it's being monitored, it's uptime. You don't have to worry about that side of the system.
Hey, Jon, we haven't done a whole lot of queuing and prepping with questions on the show because we want it to be a bit more free flowing. But I was just thinking that something that might be interesting to hear from the audience is, as the kind of visionary behind a software platform, how do you think about staying true to a unique vision that you have, coupled with needing to stay on trend as well? And I like that one idea you had where you believe that, from a marketer's perspective, they should see pages. Like, that's just a thing.
Yeah.
What's going on in your mind when you're at the command post of, driving agility into the future as a headless CMS and staying on point? But, how do you balance that out, I guess?
100%. And I think this comes back to why we've worked so well together over the years is always staying focused on the customer, right? Like, the customer knows what they need. Now, sometimes they get stuck, like what you said, Arjuna, in like the old system. I'm used to doing it this way. So you have to make sure we're not just following the way people used to do things. But a lot of people, have this big vision for headless where it's, you don't have pages, you don't do any of that. I'm telling you, 99% of headless solutions, people are going out there and they're building their own pages with the content structures. So you're just building your own things and then not getting all the benefit of the features in the CMS. Even things like preview, a lot of headless CMSs have very terrible preview to preview a staging version. It's just like, whoa, this is such a basic thing that people need all the time, whether it's a website or not a website in terms of your content. So we listen to our customers a ton. We're also not afraid to be like, you know what, the definition has changed. Things have changed. So, the way headless CMS looked 5 years ago compared to it is now, we're looking at doing a whole bunch of things where it's much more visual in terms of an integrate. Like, you preview, you see your website, you can make changes in CMS, you see it right away, things like that, where a lot of people in the headless space don't even want you to hit a preview to a website because it's against the terminology of headless, because the website's the head. It's kind of like, trying to cut that off and separate it. But our customers, they all like yes, their content goes to more places than just a website. But a lot of the time, primary is still the website. Let's be realistic about it. Let's be honest and open. And we got to give the tools for those users. So it doesn't mean we want to sacrifice reusability. Doesn't mean we want to sacrifice good architecture. Doesn't mean we want to sacrifice like building it in the right way so that it's scalable and flexible. But you got to give those tools. So to backtrack a little bit, how we envision where headless is going and how we kind of decide where it's going. We really, really listen to our customers. We're not afraid to say, just because a competitor XYZ is going this direction and saying this direction's bad, we're not listening to our competitors. We're listening to our customers and our partners. You guys give us tons of feedback, and sometimes you can give more blunt feedback than customers sometimes, and we love that because we can have a more candid conversation about like what's working and what's not. And we are involved in lots of CMS experts groups together and things like that, where people have a huge variety of opinions. And I love that because we can pick the different opinions and be like, I agree, I disagree, I agree, I disagree. And this is great. We can all have the conversation. And I want to hear the people we disagree with and try to show our point of why it should be a certain way. So,
yeah. And hey, Arjuna, I know, part of your time and thinking are keeping Dotfusion positioned to be, from a point of understanding what's happening next, but also being on the edge of contemporary technology. What are you seeing out there? I haven't really chatted with you lately about, what's on the horizon. Is there, just AI is going to just build everything and we should like open a pub somewhere in a Caribbean island, or, what do we need to be thinking about?
Well,
hey, we can open that up for you, by the way.
Okay.
I mean, I think the big change that's going to happen within the next 10 years is that interaction protocols are going to change massively.
Can you explain that?
We kind of saw this a little bit with the way we were able to suddenly interact with computers with just pure language, and it's still fuzzy, like extremely fuzzy. It's not in any kind of level of sophistication. But if no, I can like type into my computer. Then you have like a mouse kind of scene, huge interaction pattern, which was a change with touch phones, was really, touching,
Mhm.
you know. But there's something coming with the way we're going to interact with computers, and that's going to change massively in the next 10 years. Not really sure which way it's going to go, but like
Mhm.
if anyone's thinking about anything, it's just how are we going to interact with these things as they change with all the tech
Mhm.
around.
Thought-based,
Yeah,
eyeball-based,
eyeball
how do
based. I
we
tried a
get
Vision Pro, like when was that on this weekend?
Oh, cool. What
And
was
it's
the
just
scene?
like
Great, right?
amazing. Like it's mind blowing. Like they've solved so many small problems which were irritating with VR.
Yeah.
Like they've really solved it. And it's like, okay, cool. I could wear this for a couple of hours and like not be bothered at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I could work in that environment. Like I was like, okay, cool. That's interesting. It's just such a paradigm change, like so yeah.
Yeah,
I think the way we work together and with computers is all going
Mhm.
to change. So for us, we have a really keen eye. We're really focusing on collaboration and AI together, right? So how do we collaborate as a team, or with our vendors, or with our partners? How do we collaborate better within these tools, within
Mhm.
this environment, within VR or whatever it may be, right? How do we collaborate? But then how do we use AI in that collaboration to make our collaboration better? And whether AI is just another person in the room, and they're given as much information, as much help as another member of our team, or whether they're just helping the communication, the task management, whatever it may be. But all these things are going to really change how efficient and how organized we can be.
Mhm. Mhm. I won't go on about my idea around the dolphins at this point of time,
Right.
but I do think
That's a whole nother episode.
but I do think it's important to put AI in its context and in its place. We've seen it popping up in content platforms, and you'll see it.
Yeah.
I was explaining earlier today, even writing a LinkedIn post, there's now a prompt to have AI improve my post or whatever that means. So I think we're going to go through a phase of kind of figuring out its ideal spot. And I love the way you reference it as kind of a sidekick. It's another voice, another opinion, that's drawing on different data sets. That's a little different than ours and our imaginations. But yeah, I think it's important to, I guess, keep all things considered. And that at the end of the day, also, there will always be a need for communications, whether that is implanted into your brain in some other way, but there's a design element and a presentation and a message, regardless if it's commerce based or creative based or just a way of humans communicating to each other. And it's kind of cool to be involved in that and seeing that change and how things get shaped.
Yeah. And that
Absolutely.
comes back to the first thing I said about content in the context. When I put content into my CMS, how is it being used? Like, how do I write it differently with how it's being used? And this is the connection part, the communication, collaboration part, even between a brand and their customer, right? Like, how does that connection get stronger? So that's what we're really trying to help our customers do, so they get more bang for their buck for every single piece of energy and content they write and work on.
Very cool. And maybe I know we're just getting close to getting close to the end of time here. What's on your roadmap? Are you able to share any things to look forward to, or any of just your thoughts in the industry in general that might get people thinking or wanting to
Well, I
respond to
touched
you?
on a little bit there just about the collaboration and AI and things like that. Like, I definitely think AI is a tool that's going to support people. We've seen customers try to use it to write their content, and then you get into SEO problems. You get into like message, like a couple other. It's not quite there to really replace a person in terms of writing, but it can be a support, a help, right? And we feel that needs to be part of a collaboration with your whole team. So can you if you have a team of 3 people, can you augment it with one more person that's AI, and they can support and kind of work as a team member almost? So we have some really exciting things like that coming. We're also really, really focusing on this whole notion of, how do you properly preview and edit content and have that this context idea, but where your content is going, and making sure you're aware of that. I feel we really have the headless CMS part down, but in the headless space, there's a lot of issues with people losing track of where that content's going, finding their content, really understanding that. And Jenny, you talked about it earlier. One of our big differentiators is you can kind of like, if I know it's here, I can find it in Agility really easily. And we have that down. But now, you know, how do we scale that? And how do we make that even more powerful in terms of how that can be rewritten to have more context and more placement? So those are the type of things we're working on. Better preview, better connection of where the context is, collaboration, AI, all those things are big words and things in our roadmap for this year, for sure.
I completely spaced too. Congratulations on becoming part of the Mock Alliance. And that's a whole other story that folks may not know what that is, but basically Agility is part of a greater consortium of composable technologies that all kind of
API-based solutions where we can start to build standards around these to make them integrate better together, pretty much. That's, you know, so it's just that standardization that Arjuna was saying, we need better standardization for integrations.
Awesome. Unfortunately, I gotta like kind of cut things short. I just,
we could keep going forever.
Other things I wanted to ask you about, but just kind of serendipitous in that kind of Mock Alliance discussion. Maybe first, Jon, thanks for joining us. Arjuna, thanks as always for adding some technical insights and awesomeness to the jam here. Thanks to everyone who made some time to listen to our ideas and stuff over their lunch break. In 2 weeks, on February 21st, we have another amazing member of the Mock Alliance. Dean Holmes from Contentful is going to be joining us to share some insights and a little bit of the way that they approach building beautiful websites as well. But very thankful. Thanks, Jon. Have a great time.
Sure.
Arjuna, talk to you soon. Thanks everyone for joining.
See you again.
Bye-bye. Thanks.